Hi, my name's Brad Phillips. I'm here with Puppy Steps Training. Today we're going to be doing a training demonstration for you. So we're going to walk you through the program. We're going to show you everything that your puppy has learned. We're also going to teach you how to continue with the training. Now, before we get to the more demonstrating part of the program, we're first going to talk about some really important information that's going to help you have a lifetime of success with your puppy. So, your puppy is doing fantastic. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sending him home. Like I've told you before, I train to a standard, not a strict time frame. So, your puppy has reached our standard. We have very high expectations, and it's going to be important for you that as you bring them home, that you have the same expectations. Dogs are really, really neat, that they will live up to our expectations, whether we set them high or whether we set them low. And if one person in the family sets them low and everybody else is high, they're going to continue to try and test waters and see what they can get away with. So we want to make sure that the whole family is on the same page. And that's also why these demonstrations are so important, so that we can set the bar before our puppy ever enters into our home. Now, it's important to remember, your puppy is a puppy. And so they're going to have energy and they're going to make mistakes. Just because they went through our training program does not make them a perfect dog. I always like to joke with people, if you were expecting perfection, you might want to run over to Walmart and grab you a stuffed animal. And even there, you're probably going to find a flaw. So it's important to understand that our puppy is going to make mistakes. But it's also important to understand how to deal with those mistakes as they arise. Because failure or making mistakes is a very important part of learning. And so we have what we call our 3 keys to success. Now these are how we try and keep mistakes at a minimum and make sure they don't become bad habits. They're also how we continue with the training and make sure that we have success in our home. So those 3 keys are consistency, follow through, and management. You have to have all 3. These 3 things teach our puppy that we are the leader, that we're going to take care of them, that they don't have to worry, and that their needs are going to be met. Now, so we're going to start with consistency. We've taught them a certain way, and so it's important to try and be consistent along the same lines. Now, if you say things a little bit differently, as long as you're consistent with that, your puppy will understand, but it may take them a few days. And that's why we talk about the transition period. And so for the next 2 to 4 weeks, your puppy is going to be transitioning. During this transition period, they're trying to learn what the expectations are. They're trying to learn the way that you give commands. They're going to learn what they're allowed to get away with and what they're not. And especially over the next 3 days, your puppy is going to be confused. And so they're going to probably test more boundaries, just trying to see whether that consistency, that follow through, that management, they're going to try and see whether those are there. Now, also during this transition period, they're going to be undergoing a period of stress. They're leaving a familiar environment, now being thrown into an unfamiliar environment. So they may lose their appetite. They may get what we call the puppy blues, where they're not as active as they usually are. Maybe they seem a little bit sad. They also may act out once again and see what they can get away with. So it's important that we are patient with them. I want to try and really focus on building a relationship with my puppy during these first 3 days versus trying to build these commands up back to where we have them right now. Because with the stress, there's also going to be just a little bit of regression. Now, regression doesn't mean that they're going to pee in the house or that they're not going to do commands for you. It just means, once again, that they're going to be under stress, and so we're going to take that into an account, and we're going to lower our expectations just a little bit. Now, I'm always going to enforce manners. It doesn't matter whether they're stressed or not. They're not allowed to bite me. They're not allowed to jump up. They're not allowed to break through doorways. So we're going to expect the manners, and we're going to show you all of these here in a few minutes. But the commands, I'm going to keep to a minimum. Now, during this demonstration, we're going to show you some amazing stays, the place command, and they're doing awesome. But we're going to take that down. We're not going to expect them to hold a 5-minute stay on their place within the first 3 days. Instead, I'll still do these commands, but I'm going to keep them really light. I'm going to keep them fun, and I'm going to make sure that I'm helping my puppy succeed. I always want to train to success, not to failure. I never want to play guess what's in my head. I want to make sure that they have all the answers to the test. So now let's just break down those 3 keys. So the first one, consistency. We are a balanced dog training program, and so we have markers for both reinforcement and correction. And you're going to want to use these same markers. They give a clear understanding of whether your puppy is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. Like I said, we want to give them lots of information, lots of feedback. So our positive markers, we have the word good and the word okay. So good is a marker that means keep going. It's an intermediary marker. So if I put them on a place, I'm going to tell them place. I'm going to say like good girl or good boy, and I'm going to enforce that you're doing the right thing. However, you are not done. Now, when they are finished with that command, when I'm releasing them from that stay, then I'll use the word okay. So okay marks the correct behavior. It tells them that they're released from a stay and that they've done the right thing. And so it's really important to use these markers to give them that information. Once again, I'll tell them good. So that's good job, keep going. Okay, you're finished, you're able to get off, you're able to maybe venture out a little bit, give them a little bit of freedom. Okay just means that you're done with that behavior at that time. Now, we also are giving them rewards during this time. So your puppy right now is very food motivated. That is their currency. Just as you would not go to work if you did not receive a paycheck, your puppy is not going to work for you unless they're being rewarded or they're paid out. Now, eventually, as they get a little bit older, we can wean those rewards off. There's also times where I don't want to use a food reward. But right now, and especially during this transition period, we want to use a high value reward. And so I'll give them a little piece of treat. I might give them some ham or hot dogs or maybe a little bit of cheese, something high value, just to really drive this point home that I'm going to reward you and that I have the same expectations and that this is very positive for working for me. Now, there are going to be times where you don't have food on you, and that's where I'll use praise and affection. And of course, I mix that in with everything. I want to praise my dog. I want to show them affection and really show them that they're doing the right thing. Now, if I'm using a toy as a reward, which a toy is a good form of a reward, that's when I do not want to have treats on me. I want them to be focused on that toy. Because the moment that I pull out a treat, then they're going to forget about the toy and they're going to want to work for food. And I want them to have a good toy drive because that's a really important way to mentally stimulate your dog as well as meet their physical needs so that we can give them exercise. So those are our three primary forms of rewards. That's food, praise and affection, and toys. So use all three, but really keep it heavy on simple treats right now. Really drive this point home. Now, when we talk about a correction, so that's our second part of consistency. Like I said, you have to have both. I do not believe that you need to physically dominate your dog. I want our relationship to be built out of respect for me as the leader. And so I give them, once again, a lot of feedback, but my correction a lot of times is just no, and that's all it is. Dogs read our voice fluctuation and our body language very, very well. And so me changing my voice and just giving them a sharp no is all the correction I need. Now, once your dog fixes their mistake, then I'm not going to carry on this correction for a long period of time because your dog's not going to understand. They're just going to think that you're mad at them. And so the correction needs to be quick, it needs to be timely, and then we're done. So like I said, no is kind of that primary correction. Sometimes it's whatever comes out of my mouth, depending on the severity or depending on the action. Now, to kind of give you an example, once again, if I'm working with them and I put them in a stay and they break, it happens all the time because once again, we learn a lot through failure. Now, if they break a stay, I'm not going to get mad. It's not that big a deal. We're working, we're training and learning. And so I'll just simply, no, and then I'll have them do it again. I will always end on a correct behavior. I am never going to end on a failure. And if I have to break a behavior down to make sure that we get that correct repetition, I will. Now, if they do something a little bit more serious, maybe they jump up on me, which is one of my biggest pet peeves, then I'm going to give them a little bit more of a sharp correction. So it would be, no, off. My voice gets a little deeper. A lot of times I kind of puff out my chest and I'm changing my body language. Once again, that's enough of a correction. And then let's say they do something a little bit more serious, like they start to pee in the house. That's when I get frantic. And so my correction might look like, no, 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 no. And I'm just trying to get them to stop. And then I'm going to quickly take them outside. And just as important as that correction is following through and making sure I teach them what the expected behavior is, which I'll get to in just 1 minute. The last part of a correction I want to talk about is a physical correction. Now, once again, I don't believe you need to physically dominate your dog, but there is power, once again, in telling your dog no, and I will accompany that with a leash pop, which is just pop, pop. I'm not trying to yank them around. It's not to inflict any harm. The purpose of that is to regain their attention to then change their behavior. Now, once again, I don't want to injure my dog. I don't want to yank them around. It is not to inflict harm at all. It is simply to regain composure. So that's consistency. You need to consistently reward. You need to consistently correct. You have to have both. Whatever you reinforce will get replicated. And so if you are not consistent and the only time you give your dog feedback is when they're doing something wrong, guess what? They're probably not going to respect you, and instead it's going to be more of a fear-based relationship, which is what we don't want. So even if my puppy is just laying at my feet chewing on something they're supposed to, I might simply just bend down, pet them a little bit, tell them they're being a good boy. We want to give them that feedback, and especially as you're working with them, as you start to implement the commands and the leash work, give them that feedback. It is going to build your relationship more than anything you can do. So be consistent. Once again, anytime I give my dog a correction, I want to then follow through and help them understand what the correct behavior is. So that's where key number 2 comes in. So key number 2, follow through. Like I said, anytime that I correct my dog, I want to then teach them what the expected behavior is. So I'm always going to follow through. Whether I ask them to do a command and they are confused or maybe they ignore me, or whether they're doing something they're not supposed to and we catch them in the act. The follow through is a little bit different on each one. So first off, let's talk about maybe you're sitting there and you see your puppy go over and start to try and chew on a baseboard or chew on something they're not supposed to. This is where we use a concept that we call marking and redirecting. So if I saw them start chewing on something they weren't supposed to, I'm going to immediately correct them. So that correction is no. Now, once I correct them, they look at me, I'm going to redirect them into an appropriate behavior. So even if they don't look at me, I'm then going to remove them from that situation. So we'll use the example of chewing on a baseboard. I'll tell them no. Now I'm going to take them over to maybe their bed and I'll give them something to chew on. And so marking the incorrect behavior, redirecting into an appropriate behavior. Now during this puppy stage, puppies need to chew. And so my redirection, I'm going to try and match texture. They were chewing on a baseboard, maybe I'll give them a bully stick or a marrow bone, something hard that they can really get into. If they want to chew on maybe one of your pillows or a soft bed, give them a plush toy. They're chewing on their leash, give them a rope. Try and match those needs, match consistency. So you can do that with a lot of different behaviors. Even jumping is another one. A lot of times if your puppy's jumping, I'll correct them for jumping and then I'll redirect them into an appropriate behavior like a sit. So we teach them, if they want our attention, they've got to do this behavior. This is a good behavior versus the bad behavior. Now let's talk about follow through if they ignore you or maybe don't understand. So let's use the example of jumping on the couch. Let's say we're in the kitchen, we're cooking, we look over and Marley is jumping up on the couch. So I would immediately say, Marley, off, giving her a command. If she gets down and listens to that, then I'm going to reward her. So I'm going to reinforce the behavior that she just performed. If she got down, maybe came over to me, I'm going to pet her. I'm going to tell her she's a good girl because she fixed her mistake. And so the correction is done. She did the right behavior after she was asked. That's all that needs to happen. Now, if she didn't, if she had her paws up there and she looked over her shoulder like, hey, what are you going to do about it? You're over there. I will not repeat the command. The worst thing you can do is sit there and go, Marley, off, get down, get off the couch. Because you're just giving her a whole spiel of what she doesn't understand. If she doesn't do the behavior when asked, I am not going to repeat the command. I will correct her. So if I said, Marley, off, and she didn't get down, I am then going to say no, and now I'm going to start to approach her. I'm going to walk across the room. Even if I am comfortable wrapped up in a blanket, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and remove her. Now, if she fixed her mistake with that prompt, if I said no and I started to motion towards her and she got down, I'm going to reward that behavior. I'll call her over, have her sit, praise her, make sure that she understands that, yes, that's exactly what I want. That's a good girl. Now, if she still ignored you and kept trying to get up onto the couch, or maybe succeeded and now is trying to get comfortable, I am going to walk all the way over to her, and at that point I will repeat the correction. I will not repeat the command. I will tell her no again, and now I'm going to remove her and I am going to redirect her into an appropriate activity. Whether that's you're going to come over by me, you're going to lay on the floor, you're going to chew on a toy, or maybe it's, okay, I can't watch you very well right now, you're just going to go take a little break in the crate. Now I'm not going to be super mad and shove her in the crate and make it a big deal, because then you're going to destroy the crate. Instead, the correction has already happened. Now I'm redirecting her into something appropriate to do. And so the correction is done. I do not need to carry on this frustration or this anger after the correction has happened. But I am always going to give them that correction, and I am always going to follow through. Now, let's just say that I gave your puppy a command, and so I put them in. Sorry, let me take that back. Let's just say that I asked them for a sit. So I said sit, gave them a hand signal, and they looked at me like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never seen this command before. Now, instead of getting frustrated and repeating myself, I'm going to maybe adjust my body language. The worst thing you can do is go sit, sit, no sit, sit, because they're not going to understand at that point. Dogs don't speak English. They understand the sound of our voice making that sound of sit. And so they know that it's one time. So sit is the command, not sit, 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 sit. So one time, ask them once. Now, once again, if they look up at me like, I don't know what you're talking about, I'm going to give them a few seconds to think about it. Dogs are not robots. They have to process things. And at the same time, while I'm allowing them to process, maybe I'll adjust my body language. So maybe I'll kind of lean forward or make the hand gesture. But I'm going to help them succeed. Now then, if they blatantly ignored me and just tried to walk off, that is when I will correct them. I will say, no, now I'm going to reset. So I'm going to bring them back to the same area and ask them again. But I will only repeat the command if they completely walk away. If they are focused on me, just trying to understand what I am asking, I will not repeat the command, but I will adjust my body language to help them succeed. If they ignore me or they run off, then I will implement a correction and reset to where I will repeat the command. So hopefully that makes sense. If you do have any questions on any of this, please let me know. But follow through is super important. The moment that you don't follow through, the moment you call your dog to come and they run the other direction and you say, I'll get them later, is the moment that your dog loses respect for you and are going to try and push more and more buttons or try and push more and more boundaries. So it is so important that you follow through and help your dog succeed. Give them necessary feedback and information. So that was key number 2. We've got consistency, number 1, follow through, number 2, and now number 3, which is management. Management is going to be the most important thing you do throughout this transition period. When we manage our dog, we maintain control and we provide an environment where they don't even have the opportunity to create bad habits. Good management when bringing a puppy home is 100% supervision. 100% supervision is active eyes on them at all times. That's not, well, I saw them a few minutes ago. You have to know what they're doing at all times, what they have in their mouth, what they're getting into, where they're laying down, all of it. 100% supervision. Now, there are some good management tools to help you along the way. The crate is your best management tool. You know that if they're in the crate, they're not chewing something up, they're not destroying a family heirloom, and they're not peeing. So use the crate to your advantage. Anytime you cannot give them 100% supervision, use the crate as management. Use a leash. I let my puppies drag around just a really lightweight 4-foot leash for the first few weeks that they're in my house. That way I have a quick way to grab them if needs be, or to take them outside. I will also keep them on a long lead until I've built a relationship to where I know that they are going to follow through and they are going to come back when called. So that once again, this way, they do not have an opportunity to run off and not listen to me. They don't have an opportunity to create a bad habit. Now, as we go throughout the manners, we're going to talk about how to manage those each individually because they're all managed a little bit differently. But the key points to remember is 100% supervision. That is the most important thing you are going to do over this transition period. Know where your dog is at all times. And once again, that's not, oh, I knew where they were 2 minutes ago. It's, I know where they are now, I know what they're chewing on. Because if you walk around the corner and your dog has had an accident and you don't see it, there's nothing you can do. And so by good management, you provide the opportunity to develop a relationship as well as to create a set of expectations that your dog understands and that are going to set you up for success. So recap, the 3 keys: be consistent, both rewarding and correcting. Lots of feedback is important. Whatever you reinforce will get replicated. If you ask them to do something, follow through. Do not allow your dog to get away with ignoring you or ending on an incorrect behavior. Always train to success, not to failure. And make sure that you follow through. If you ask them to do it, help them succeed. And the last one, management. Manage your dog, 100% supervision. You know what they are getting into at all times. You know where they are. That is going to set you up for success. So now we're going to switch gears and we're going to pull out your puppy and we're going to walk through all of the training with you. As you watch this video, please write down questions and then give me a phone call or an email. We want to help you succeed. We want to make sure that this transition is as smooth as possible. And that is, once again, the purpose of this video is to help you. And so if you have any questions, please let us know. But we're very happy with where your puppy's at and excited to show off this training. This next video, we're going to be talking about our expectations with crate training and house training. Now, with the crate, I expect that your puppy is sleeping through the night, 8 hours, no problem, and up to 4 hours during the day. Now, in the evening time, the biggest part of crate training is setting a routine. So here at Puppy Steps Training, we're putting them to bed at 10 p.m. and getting them up at 6 a.m. So a good solid 8 hours. Now, they can go longer than that as they get a little bit older, but as you bring them home, don't expect to push that right away. If you are going to adjust that schedule, do it incrementally and go slow. Just know that at about 5:50, 6 o'clock, they're going to start getting restless because they're used to getting up at that time. Now, another big part of sleeping through the night is that mealtime routine. So we feed them at 6 p.m. and usually right around 6 a.m. The morning time, that a.m. meal, isn't super important that you stick to that schedule. You can honestly get them up and feed them when you're ready. However, the evening time meal, we do want to feed them by 6 p.m., no later than that, because I do want a good 4 hours for them to clear everything that's in their system so that they can sleep through the night. Now, we also limit water for the first couple weeks because they're stressed out. When a puppy's stressed out, they drink a lot more and they have to go to the bathroom a lot more. So we want to just, take away some of the fuel for that fire. I still want to make sure that they have plenty of access to water. I just don't want unlimited access. So anytime that they're spending a lot of time outside, I do want to make sure they have access to water. I also want to make sure that they have water when they're eating, and then I'll give it to them, several times throughout the day. But as soon as I feel like they're done or they've had enough, we're going to take it away. Because what I don't want to do is them drink so much that then they're distended. So I don't want them feeling like a panic that they need to drink because it's going to get taken away, but I also don't want them to think that they can just engorge themselves. So hopefully that makes sense, but that routine is a big part of sleeping through the night. Now, they shouldn't be having accidents and they shouldn't be making noise in the crate. So if they do make some noise in the crate, for the first couple minutes, we're going to ignore that. We're going to let them just settle down, especially in the first day or two as they get home. They are going to be under some stress, and so you're their source of comfort. But I don't want them thinking that if they throw a big fit, that you're going to let them out. So for the first 5 minutes, just let them kind of cry it out. Then the first thing that I'll go to is just draping a blanket over the crate. By doing that, we're making sure that they can't see outside, and they're a lot like parrots. If they can't see what's going on, they're going to settle down easier. We've also taught them a hush command. If they do, just continue carrying on. And so if I need to give them that command, it'll be no, hush. And so it's a little bit louder. Obviously, you're implementing a correction, and they should quiet down. Now, if they just carry on like they didn't even hear that, then I might accompany with a little tap on top. So I'm not banging on the crate, but it will just be, no, hush. And it's just to break them of their reverie. I don't want to, kick the crate across the room or cause like any type of fearfulness, but it's just like, hey, knock it off. So that's our correction there. Now, the biggest mistake that you can make with crate training is letting them out if they are crying. Because as soon as you do that, they figure out like, oh, if I throw a fit, they're gonna let me out. So absolutely no positive attention if they're crying in the crate. The second worst thing that you can do is come over and go, oh, it's okay, I'll let you out in a minute, and stick your fingers in the crate. Because same thing, you're giving them positive attention for throwing a fit. So it is no positive attention if they're crying in the crate. If they are making noise and you are about to let them out, still expect some silence. So I'll tell them hush, and I want them to give me like 10 seconds of silence. If you think, oh my goodness, they're gonna have an accident, they need to go to the bathroom, then I might expect still some silence, but it might be more like 3 seconds. So I'd say hush, okay, now let's go, and we'll get them outside. So that's our evening stuff. During the day, they should also be able to be in their crate comfortably without making noise, without having accidents. Like I said, we build that up to 4 hours at a time. You can put them in the crate more than that. I just don't do longer than a 4-hour block at this point. I utilize the crate very heavily while we're transitioning and while we're working on potty training. So don't be afraid to put them in the crate. It is honestly your best friend. They can be inside the crate for as little as a minute, all the way up to that 4 hours. So anytime you can't give them that 100% supervision, utilize the crate. Now we also want to use the crate both when we're home as well as when we leave. If we only put our puppy in the crate when we're leaving, you're going to build some separation anxiety. They're going to associate the crate with you leaving, and it's going to cause even more panic, even more noise. So utilize the crate when you're home, when you're in the same room as them, as well as when you leave. Now, the other thing is, don't make it obvious that you're leaving all the time. If you make a big deal out of putting them in the crate when you are leaving, same thing, you're going to build some separation anxiety. And it's the same concept when you come home. If you come in the door and you immediately rush over to your dog and, oh, I missed you, you're going to build a charge and they're going to go crazy in the crate. So we want to make sure that that's kind of nonchalant. I'll get to you in a second. Sometimes I'll let you out immediately. Sometimes I'll go to the bathroom or go get a drink. And that way we don't build that charge, but it should be a very calm experience being in the crate. So with that, now I want to talk about our expectations with house training. So your puppy, if they're going home, obviously is doing very, very well with house training. My expectations are that they can be inside the house for 2 hours without needing a break, without having accidents. Now they've been doing that here, but we're going to drop or lower our expectations for the first couple weeks to make sure that we train to success. Now that's not saying that I expect a bunch of regression and you're going to have accidents. It's just saying that I'm going to set them up for success. We always train to success, and I want to make sure that I don't give them the opportunity to fail. So we're going to give you a very strict schedule for the first 2 weeks, and if you'll just follow that, you're not going to give them, once again, that opportunity for accidents. Now, before I go into that schedule, just a couple things that I want to talk about. One is, obviously, there's going to be some hills and valleys with the house training, but we always want them in this forward progression. So once again, we're going to set them up for success. So that's a big part of the schedule, is giving them lots of opportunities to go to the bathroom. And honestly, during these first 2 weeks, paranoia is going to be your best friend. If you even think that they're going to have an accident, or they're like, maybe they need to go to the bathroom, just take them outside. I would much rather take them out 10 times than clean up one accident. You're also going to look for a lot of indicators that they need to go. Once again, 100% supervision is the most important thing you're going to do during this transition. So if you're watching them and you notice that they get up and try and walk away from you, that's an indicator that they may need to go. If they start sniffing really heavily, panting, pacing around, just take them outside. Once again, if your gut says maybe they need to go, just take them out. Now, if they get up and they start spinning little circles, just take them outside. Nobody likes what happens next. Okay? So those are the indicators that we're looking for. If they have an accident, there's kind of 2 scenarios we look for. One, if they have it away from you and you don't see it, but you stumble across it later, whether it's 2 minutes, whether it's an hour, there is nothing you can do about that. That means that you weren't giving them enough attention, you weren't paying attention to them, and so that's a slap on the wrist. We need to do better as the owner. If you can't give them that supervision, put them in the crate. So scenario number 2 is they start peeing right in front of us. If they're going to have an accident, that's what I want, because it provides a very valuable opportunity to teach them what I expect. So I'm going to correct them right there. So it's no, 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 and I'm going to grab them and run them outside. Now, once I get outside, I'm going to change my attitude, and I'm going to bury that frustration deep down, and I'm going to give them the opportunity to finish. If they finish going to the bathroom outside, I am then going to praise and reward that behavior. That way I create a very black and white experience. It's absolutely not, you do not pee here. Yes, that's where I want you to go. Good dog, good girl, good boy, right? The worst thing you can do is they start peeing in front of you and you just kick them outside and then go and clean it up. Because now they just peed, they got corrected, but then they got to go outside and play. So it's so important that we go with them and we make sure that they have a job to do when they're going to the bathroom outside. Okay, so now our routine. So once again, it's, I consider it a minor inconvenience for the next 2 weeks for a lifetime of good house training. We did this at the very beginning, but once again, we're going to take them back down just to make sure we train to success. So here it is. First 24 hours, we are going to take them over to the bell. They're going to ring it, and we're going to go to the bathroom every 30 minutes. They get a treat when they ring the bell and when they go to the bathroom. Okay, so first 24 hours, every 30 minutes. The exception to all of this is if they're in the crate, you don't need to pull them out every 30 minutes. Or if they're just passed out asleep, I'm just going to watch them and I'm going to wait till they wake up. Okay, so day 1, first 24 hours every 30 minutes. Day 2, I'm going to 45 minutes. Same thing, they're going to ring the bell, we're going to take them outside, they get a treat for ringing the bell, they get a treat for going to the bathroom. If they don't go to the bathroom, we just come right back in. It's a very neutral experience. Also, these first 2 days, because we are taking them out so often, I'm only going to give them a minute outside. It's going to be quick, we have a job to do, we're coming back inside. Now, if they haven't went for a couple hours and you're getting nervous, put them in the crate for 20 minutes and then do it again. Okay? Don't just give them free access to your house, especially if they haven't went to the bathroom for a little bit. Okay, so now day 3. At day 3, we're moving to an hour. So every hour, we're going to take them to the bells, give them an opportunity to go to the bathroom. But now we're changing things. They are no longer going to get a treat when they ring the bell. It is only if they go to the bathroom. Okay? Where we're taking them out every hour, I'm also going to bump the time to being, I will give them 3 minutes outside, but no more than that. That's all they need, 3 minutes, we come back in. So for the next few days, so from days 3 to 8, I am staying at 1 hour. I am not going to surpass that. Every hour, we're going to the bells, we're giving them an opportunity to go to the bathroom. Okay, so that's the first week. Week number 2, all depends on how they did during week number 1. If they've done phenomenal, you haven't even thought about having an accident, or didn't have a close call, we're going to progress to 2 hours. So for me, I still go every 15 minutes and work up. But the exception is, if I get up to an hour and a half and we have a close call, then maybe I'll drop them back down. So I am more than willing to take away some of that freedom. I'm very, very slow to give it, very quick to take it away. But same thing, I'm only going to give them 3 minutes outside. They have the opportunity to go to the bathroom, we come right back in. You do not need to give them any more than 3 minutes outside. Otherwise, they're going to get distracted, they're going to stall, and they're not focused on what the job is. Okay? So that's the first 2 weeks. We're going to work up to 2 hours. From 2 weeks to a month, we are not surpassing 2 hours. Once again, be slow to give them that freedom, be quick to take it away. If you can follow this schedule, I promise you're going to have success, because 1, we're beating them to the punch. This is not about them having to go to the bathroom that frequently. It is all about establishing a pattern, establishing a routine. This is where the bells are, this is where we're going to go to the bathroom. My expectations are for you to go in this certain place. Now, it's also important that you take them outside on a leash. That's going to help them focus on what they're doing. It can be a long lead, but I don't want to just give them free access to run and play. Okay, so that's our routine. Now I'm going to switch the camera angle and I'm going to show you how we target the bells. Come here. Good boy. All right, so now we're going to talk about targeting the bells. So the first thing you're going to do when you get home is you're going to pull your bells out of your bag, and we're going to go through this exercise. The first part of this exercise we do off the door. You're only going to do this one time, but I'm going to hang the bells in front of Bodie here, and I'm going to reward him for touching them. I'm going to do this 4 or 5 times before I move to the door. Okay, once we do this and we move to the door, Then I'm going to do a similar exercise where I'm going to lean up against the doorway and I'm going to stare at the bells. Every time he touches them, I'm going to say, okay, outside. I'll do that 3 or 4 times before taking him out. So we're just going to do those 2 parts one time. When I take him outside, I'm going to give him 1 to 3 minutes, depending on where we're at, to go to the bathroom, periodically saying the word outside. Now when he goes, I'm going to say, okay, good, outside. I'm going to make it very rewarding. I'm going to give him a treat. I'm going to praise him because I really want to reinforce that behavior. If he doesn't go, we just come back inside. It's a neutral experience. We start over, okay? So I'm going to demonstrate that. So I'm just going to hang the bells. I'm going to stare at him, and stare at the bells. Every time he touches them, I'm going to say, okay. Okay, good boy. Do this 4 or 5 times. Okay, good boy. Okay, good boy. You can see that he quickly learns that this is a good little treat dispenser. Okay, good boy. So we're just making it fun. He's done that a handful of times. Now we're going to go to the door. Also, a little tip for you. I like to drop the leash and step on it. Okay, outside. That way I can keep control of him and I have both hands free. Okay, outside. Good boy. Okay, outside. Good boy. So I'm going to have him do it one more time and then we're going to go outside. Okay, outside. Good boy. And once again, I'm going to walk him around on leash, periodically saying outside. Okay. You also notice he's expected to wait at the doorway. Okay, good boy. Now, after you do that little exercise, from here on out, when you target the bells, it's just going to be walking him over, staring at the bells. Once he rings it, okay, outside, and then we go outside, okay? And remember, for the first 2 days, I'm giving him a treat for ringing the bells. After that, no more treats. I also want to mention, don't be surprised if for the first 2 weeks, he doesn't go and ring the bells on his own. He may, but then again, we're going to be beating him to the punch so many times that he may not need to go. So we're going to beat him to the bells. So don't be worried about that. The other thing that I want to mention is just if he rings the bells, we have to go outside to the bathroom. There is no play. There is no, you just barely went out, so I'm going to ignore you. You have to take him out. If he keeps hitting the bells one right after another, then redirect him into something else to do. If you were headed outside to go for a walk or to go and play and he rings the bells, we're going to have to go, okay, outside. We're going to go to the bathroom, and then we're going to come back in, wait 10 to 20 seconds, and then we'll go outside. So if you're going outside to play or a walk, make sure you forego the bells. So that's our expectations with crate training and house training. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We want to make sure this transitions over smooth, but this is definitely, as far as the house training goes, this is definitely the part of the program that requires the most effort because it is those 2 weeks of constantly having to take him out. And then every dog house trains differently. So it may go longer than that till you feel confident and comfortable, but don't give him too much freedom until you trust him and you have that relationship. So